Alright, today I am going to walk you through how to build a battery box for your kayak. I've got a USB port, an on-off switch, Marineco plug. Let's jump into it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section. To go over what we're going to need for this build, we're going to need some Anderson plugs. This is going to be for your charging cable that we'll build. You're going to need some way to mount your USB port that I'm going to install. So the plan is to put this USB port in here in this housing and have it on top of the battery. A circuit breaker, whatever your trolling motor is rated for. For this instance, we're going to be installing a 60 amp circuit breaker. Your preferred trolling motor plug, Marineco 70 amp trolling motor plug is what I'm using on this one. 10 gauge ring terminals for your charging cable. Some quality wire strippers. This is a weather boot that I'm going to add to the charging cable to keep it weatherproof when not using. Some quality crimps, lugs, and again lugs for the battery. 10 gauge wire, 6 gauge marine grade wire. I have an on and off switch, some heavy duty crimpers for the lugs themselves, some heat shrink, and some sort of tie down for your battery to tie it down to your kayak, and a 10 amp fuse for your charging cable. Now to start off, I'm going to have to drill a 2.5 inch hole on the top of my battery box here. So I'll take the lid off. This is going to be for my on-off switch that I'm going to be installing top of the battery box. Now that I have the shut-off on there, I am going to take some screws and screw that down so it's not going anywhere. Now the on and off switch is on there. Before I actually start running any wires, I'm going to go ahead and install the little pod that I have for this will be for the USB port on top of my kayak. This will power my GoPro, installed roughly right there. So I'm going to drill probably a 1/2 inch hole right here, and then so I can run some 10 gauge wire up through it. Now that I have my hole drilled there, I'm going to go ahead and get the USB port on there. Now this is a USB port that's actually rated for up to 48 volts, 12, 36, 48 volt. Since I'm going to be using a 36 volt system or 36 volt battery, I needed to up that. Typically on the USB ports you're going to see them rated for either 12 or 24 volt, which will then convert it to the 5 volt standard for your iPhones, GoPros, and that sort of thing. Next, I'm going to install my wiring for the USB port. I'm going to take my 10 gauge wire and get it connected to the USB port and then attach the end here before I connect it to the battery. So this is just taking a 10 gauge ring terminal, and it's going to fit on my battery lug for the battery itself. I have a 3 amp fuse here that will protect the GoPro from pulling too many amps or anything like that. So you got to make sure you have your fuse in there. Okay, so now that I have my wires, I'm going to go ahead and plug them into my USB port. So I've got my positive cable. It's got my fuse plug in right there that'll go into the back of the USB port, and then my ring terminal that will go on the battery lug itself. Okay, so now I have everything. I'm going to take the terminal through here and go ahead and plug it into my my USB port. So I've got to feed it through that, and then run that through there, and then hook this up. Make sure it's on your positive on positive, and we're going to do the exact same thing for my negative wire. So run that through here and bring that out through here and connect it. Okay, it's seated properly. So now I'll take this, fix it the right way. Actually, probably ought to bring that up there already. Get that ready to essentially bolt down. There you go. That is that. Alright, so now that we have this on there, I'm going to go ahead and bolt it down with the screws that I have for it. Next step is we're going to add the 60 amp circuit breaker. I'm actually going to mount that on the battery itself, and then I'll run the positive wire to here, and then it's going to go from here to my on-off switch. You want to keep your breaker as close to your battery terminal as possible. I'm actually going to attach this with just some Velcro so it'll stay on there. Been doing that for a while and it's worked great. Okay, so now I have my circuit breaker installed on the battery with the Velcro, and I've went ahead and made a little cable that's actually going to go to the power post, or the post on the battery. Next, what I'm going to do is I will go ahead and take my cable from here and install it to the shutoff. So we're going to take 6-gauge wire, add a lug to it, run it from here, and bring it up to the shutoff. All right, so now I have the shutoff installed, as you can see up underneath there. And I ran another cable out. This is actually going to go to the Marine Co plug. Nothing is actually plugged into the battery yet. All right, so now I have this on the Marine Co plug. Again, I don't have this plugged in yet, but that will go on the negative cable. And I'm going to take a piece of Velcro and keep that there. That's kind of going to hold that in place right there. And then next I'm going to be working on my charging cable. So I have this basically ready. I've got to get the negative wire, but join this together here. But I'll put probably a 15 amp fuse in there. It's a 10 amp charger. Nearing the end of the battery build here, I have my Marine Co plug on here. I took some Velcro and that's kind of a little holder spot for it. Got the on-off switch. Really the only last thing that I have to do, I got everything screwed in there right on that. So the on-off switch will control this USB port as well. Got my charging cable over here. Works great. So really the last thing I've got to do is I need to add little hooks so that I can strap it down to my kayak. These are the hooks I'll be using, or I guess our little pad eyes. I'm just going to screw them into the sides at the top here and like I said, be able to strap this down onto my kayak. Alright, well there's the finished product. I've got my pad eyes mounted. I did 3 around it. That should hold it perfectly fine. Flip it on, show you that it works. So I've got my on-off switch, so flip that over to on. Our USB port working. It's showing 39.6 volts. That's a fairly easy way to build a battery box. You can do this with a 12 volt, 24 volt, and make sure that your components are right for the job. So thanks, and if you have any questions, please, again, let me know.